Racing returns to Cheltenham on Friday. It's a two-day meeting, and I've got 3 bets on Friday for the action. And I'm starting off with the 115, the first televised race on ITV. And it's a mares handicap. It's a competitive affair. Better than a lot of mares handicaps, to be honest. And you can give a chance to a number of them, including Ariane, who's thriving since joining Philip Hobbs. There's a few others in there as well, a few lurkers that might run well. But the one I liked with experience in mind is Black Tulip. This is a sort of race where a lot of these mares will be experiencing these fences, these stiff fences for the first time, probably going a decent gallop as well. There's a couple of pace angles, and some of them simply won't stand up to the jumping test. And I can see that catching out a number of them. The one thing with Black Tulip is we know she handles this jumping test. She handles this track. She's got round twice at Cheltenham, including in this race 2 years ago when she was a good second, having probably done a little bit too much in the lead that day. She arrives in winning form. She won at Uttoxeter last time under forcing tactics. I'm hoping that Richard Patrick will go forward on her again because I think those tactics suit her really well. And I like front runners at Cheltenham on the chase track. I think it's a good place to be anyway. So Black Tulip to hopefully make her experience edge and her jumping edge count in the 4th race on the card, the 115 at Cheltenham, Black Tulip. Second bet of the day comes in the Peterborough Chase, obviously rerouted here. Nice addition to the card, obviously, and it's a good race as well. Kalashnikov, Mr. Fisher, Dolos, top notch. It's a proper grade 2 race, you'd have to say. The one at the early prices that catches my eye is a horse that obviously ran pretty poorly on his reappearance. It's Glen Forsa, but the fact that the rest of the yards jumpers have been running similarly badly on their return gives me a bit of hope that the runs have basically badly just been needed for the stable. And I'm hoping that Glen Forsa can't run as badly this time round, because he is a very promising horse. He's obviously been a bit forgotten about. He missed last season after his reappearance, but he showed us there when he was 3rd in a Newbury handicap, which has worked out very well, and just behind Kalashnikov, who obviously reopposes on Friday. He showed then that he still retains a lot of his old ability, that ability that we saw during his novice chasing campaign. And I'm hoping that he can get back to that sort of level with his reappearance under his belt. He was very rusty, obviously, at Exeter, and he did take a tired late fall. But as I say, the way the rest of the yards horses have been running, I'm willing to forgive that at the prices. You consider that he's 14-1, and Mr. Fisher, who was pretty lackluster on his reappearance, he's 4-5-1. You can start to see why I think that Glen Forsa is a bit overpriced at that sort of those sort of odds, particularly when he ties in with the likes of Kalashnikov, who is going to be somewhere near the top of the market as well, having run pretty promisingly on his reappearance in a hurdle race at Haydock. But Glen Forsa at about 14-1, I think, is a fair bet. Still got a bit of untapped potential, despite the fact that he ran pretty badly on his return. So Glen Forsa in the rescheduled Peterborough Chase is my second bet. Now, number 3, we're going to the very next race on the card, actually. So nice and simple. Races 4, 5, and 6. This is race 6, the Unibet Handicap Chase, a pretty thin grade 3, really, for stayers. There aren't many of these that are all that interesting for this sort of race, to be honest. You've got the likes of Potter's Legend, who won a pretty weak-looking veterans race last time. You've got West Approach, who will probably run well, but doesn't seem to have the resolution to necessarily go and win one of these. You've got Commodore, who had a very, very punishing reappearance and maybe will go the wrong way from that, although we can't be sure. So I thought I narrowed it down to the top 2 in the betting, to be honest, and the top 2 on ratings. Court Maid and Black Corton. I think those are the 2 to concentrate on. Court Maid, she's been really, really good over fences. She's taken to it really very well, and she was impressive when bolting up in a staying handicap chase in Ireland last time, relishing the extra emphasis on stamina. She comes back in trip today, which I think will be okay for her, though she obviously did improve for going up to an extreme distance last time. This is still a trip, isn't it? It's still over 3 miles. I think that'll be fine for her. The one thing is, at the price she's likely to be, it just puts me off her a little bit, is the fact that this is not going to have been plan A, I don't think. She's obviously had a pretty intensive start to her chasing campaign already. And I mean, you certainly can't blame Connections for turning her out quickly under a penalty when you've got a chance to compete for a grade 3 at Cheltenham, when you're likely to be sent off sub 2 to 1. Then you've got to take your chance. But this obviously isn't, I don't think, plan A, and she obviously had put up a big performance last time. She might not be in quite the same form here, turned out 12 days later, having already had a pretty intensive start to her chasing career and the start to this season. So Black Corton's the sort of one by default really that I landed on. Now, he hasn't won in 7 attempts in handicap chases, and that on its own is a bit off-putting. But then you start to look at the races that he's running, and that stat becomes a lot more forgivable, really. I mean, even last season, he was beaten into 2nd in the Galway Plate. He was 3rd in a very competitive renewal of the Sodexo chase at Ascot, off 163, which is a massive performance really from a handicapping perspective. And then he was 2nd in that grade 3 at Kempton in February as well. So he's put up some massive efforts, placed efforts in very, very top end staying handicap chases. This is a bit easier. He's probably only got 1 or 2 to beat in this, I think, if he can see out the longer trip, which is a question mark. Although at Ascot last time, he perhaps showed that maybe longer trips is perhaps the way to go with him nowadays. Now he's nearly a 10-year-old. And I think this just looks a nice opening. It's cut up pretty well. And Paul Nicholls is no better trainer for taking advantage of these sort of weakish looking graded races. And I'm hoping that Black Corton can get back to winning ways. He's got first-time cheap pieces on as well, so they're trying something new there. He'll probably get a prominent ride. I thought he just had plenty going for him in a thin-looking contest.